Alright, let's get into this. This is Spicy Dungeoneer, where we ask the difficult questions and hopefully have some civilized chats about it. What is alignment? Should we get rid of it? A lot of people don't like it. Some people think that it's really good. What do you do in your campaigns? What exactly is alignment? Does it just add a bit of flavour? Another thing we should talk about is, what about evil characters? Do you let them in your game, or do they create more problems? What about lawful good paladins? Have you ever had any problems with that? I'd be interested to hear your ideas in the comments. In general, the alignment system was introduced as a threefold one with just law, neutrality, and chaos in the original rules. And that seemed to serve okay for a while until a good and evil alignment was added to the mix, and we got the ninefold alignments that we know today, where you might have a lawful evil devil, for example, that sort of used the law, had the contract, evil lawyer sort of thing. Or then you had the chaotic good, sort of outlaws of the marsh in Chinese stories that stole from the rich, gave to the poor. Then this was kept for a while in various editions, and actually acting contrary to your alignment would make it more difficult for you to gain experience. And that was the thing, being able to gain experience more quickly was part of that system. A lot of people were starting to grumble even back then that it was not really needed. There were problems with it. But it wasn't until 3.5 or 3.0 that people started to really question it and say, is it necessary? You had things like alternative builds of Druid where they could be any neutral rather than having to be true neutral, because that was the thing at one stage. And basically we started to look at alignment as a spectrum, and that the character races didn't have to be evil or good or things like that, and that there was more questions being asked about it. Fourth edition, for all of the things that it did wrong, basically tried to fix the alignment, and they reduced it down to 5, which was just lawful good, good, evil, chaotic evil, and unaligned. Then 5th edition came out, and we went back to the 9 alignments, but introduced the 10th, which was unaligned, as opposed to neutral. So neutral and unaligned are two different things. And we are where we are today with people liking alignment, saying that we need it, and people saying it's not good, we should get rid of it. And I think that in general, most people use alignment just as a role-playing guide. I have played other games which didn't have alignment and that just had codes. For example, Conan RPG just had codes. So for example, a knight might have its own code of conduct, or a barbarian might have its own code of conduct. So for example, obviously a knight would be loyal to the Lord and stick up for some sort of virtue or something, whereas a barbarian might be loyal to their tribe, might, if they fight with somebody in a battle, then feel some sort of loyalty to that person, etc., etc. That was sort of, Conan RPG didn't really flesh that out a lot. It did give you a lot of examples, but encouraged you to do your own. But in general, we haven't seen anything like that in Dungeons and Dragons, unless you sort of count some of the Oriental D&D honor sort of stuff. And that's interesting and something that I'd like to look at in the future, and probably will do another video about, because I like this idea of honor, prestige, and sort of like social status being some sort of effect on the game. With a game like that, you're going more into the realms of things like Pendragon and other things like that, and it wouldn't work for every campaign. And I think also we do need to acknowledge that when we're talking about Dungeons and Dragons, and that is that, you know, every table, every DM and group of players is in itself a little group, a little democracy of its own. So if the DM and the players agree that alignment is important to the game, that's going to happen, and they should have fun, and that's really what it's all about. It's basically having fun. Whereas in other group might say, well, we don't want alignment, we don't want to do anything else, we just want to keep it this way, and that's fine too. Have you ever played an evil campaign? That's interesting. I had some ideas for a group of hobgoblins once in a large battle, but, well, I don't know. Evil campaigns are an interesting concept, but I'm not sure. They just don't feel right. And I must admit, some of the alignments are very difficult to play with, even if they are a little bit fun. So, what is lawful good? If we think of Superman and his commitment to what is right and adhering to the law, that's a good example of a lawful good character. If you want to talk about a neutral good, that might be something like Aladdin. And basically, Aladdin was prepared to, not necessarily follow the law, but he wasn't committed to chaos either. So that would be a neutral good character. Chaotic good prizes freedom, and so you have your William Wallace sort of freedom, Braveheart sort of thing, but still working towards good, possibly thinking that freedom is part of that good. Lawful neutral is interesting. I often think that a paladin should be more lawful neutral than lawful good, especially how some people play them, because they often create so many problems for other players that I wonder what is good about it. I certainly would love to make a paladin subclass that was more like a Judge Dredd character. True neutral is difficult. I mentioned before, druids used to be true neutral, but were they? Often they were really worried about nature and things like that, and I wonder whether that is neutral or neutral good. Chaotic neutral, sometimes I wonder whether chaotic neutrals are just insane characters. Like, would insanity be chaotic neutral, or some sort of but then again, that's getting into a different area. But if we think of Jack Sparrow and a pirate, he might be chaotic in that he doesn't respect law, but he might not be necessarily evil. Although if you think that pirates had your best interests at heart, you probably don't know much about pirates. Lawful evil, the person who follows the law and gets their goals accomplished. Think of your devils and your I actually think that lawful evil villains are some of the more interesting ones, rather than just pure chaotic and chaos and evil, but actually using the law and the apparatus of upholding the law for evil purposes is an interesting theme in a D&D campaign. Neutral evil, poor old Scar, it leads to the question is many people think that they are the good person and that anybody working against them is evil, and I think that is one of the problems with the alignment system. You know, Scar might have actually viewed himself as hard done by and just claiming what is rightfully his, and therefore he might have viewed himself as a good character. Chaotic evil, you've got your typical villain that's completely chaotic and we can't predict them, which also makes them very dangerous. You can have a lot of fun with alignments. There's been a lot of memes. I've seen like dividing Australian birds up into alignment. This is one I did for ice cream. I think it's fun. So, you know, you don't have to take it seriously with angels and devils and demons and all of that, but often if you're going to really emphasize an alignment, that's where you end up going. And then if you are using angels and demons, then that is a very sort of Eurocentric view of the world. I'm sort of playing with the idea of more of a Buddhist world where demons and celestials are less like that. And I think that other cultures don't view other creatures like that. And with absolute alignments and things like that. Even look how the Greeks viewed their gods. They were often just like humans, possibly even worse. So should we get an alignment? I'd like to hear your ideas about it. I think there's a very strong argument for keeping it just because it's simple. You know, when you have a new character, you don't have a lot of, you don't want to like weigh them down with a lot of rules straight away and lots of choices. So just choosing a quick alignment can be the way to just move on. And then as the player gets used to the game, and indeed, even if you're an experienced player, you might just like to have an alignment and then think about that later. We do have traits, bonds, ideals, and flaws already. I rarely create my own, mainly because whenever I have to create my own in D&D, I always hope that I'm not sort of like min-maxing, you know, like, you know, when you go to job interviews and they say, what's your flaw? And you think, oh, I overwork and I overthink, you know, are they really flaws? Your prospective employer might actually like that. So, you know, D&D players tend to try to describe things that are ways that are advantageous for them if we give them a chance, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I always am a bit suspicious when it comes to players writing their own stuff. You can already ignore it if you want, but you know, there's some good arguments for changing alignment, and maybe the outer planes don't have anything to do with your campaign. They don't have everything to do with a lot of campaigns. But I'd like to hear what you think about it. You know, it's a complicated issue, so please do be respectful in the comments. You know, we all just love this game. We're all fans of the game. Of course, that means we're passionate about these things, you know, and so go for it, but just be respectful, please. If you've liked this, please leave a comment and, you know, we can dive into this topic a bit more. I've got ideas for a video on honor and things like that already. If you would like to keep in contact, and please subscribe and turn on notifications. It really does help the channel out. And if I know that you like these videos, I will make more. Well, thanks for listening, and bye for now.